Hi, all, and welcome to episode 30 of Plain Speaking Sanjiv. Today, I want to speak to you about our love for paper. By our, I mean we in India, and how we love paper despite everything we say about digital this and digital that, digital first, and all of the investments we're making into technology. Our love for paper is unmatched. So the reason I'm speaking about this is because of the news that we've all been reading lately that due to the COVID crisis, BCAS has decided that security no longer needs to stamp your boarding passes, your paper boarding passes. In fact, stamping had been discontinued in Bombay a few months ago, but it continues in every other city in India. And this requirement to stamp your boarding pass is kind of an anachronism. I mean, if you trust your security, if you trust your processes, and if it is good enough to work in Bombay without stamping, why should it not be good enough everywhere else? Nowhere else in the world actually do people stamp boarding passes the way they do it in India. So for me, this is a welcome change, a welcome announcement. I hope it becomes permanent because stamping of boarding passes creates all kinds of problems. Not only does it risk staining your shirt, which many corporate travelers complain about when you put the boarding pass back into your pocket, but it creates other problems, such as if you lose your boarding pass on the way to uh, the gate can't just print out a new one and give it to you because you have to go back to security and go through security and get the boarding pass stamped yet again. And if there isn't much time left for the flight to depart, you may not have time to actually do that. And this creates all kinds of customer service problems where customers are saying that, look, I lost my boarding pass, you know who I am, you got my ID. Why so much red tape to just get me a new boarding pass? Well, the red tape is because we need to stamp. Anyhow, so this is going away. And when you think about digital, when you think about the rest of the world, especially if you go to the West, if you go to the US now, people don't even have paper boarding passes. It is rare. It is all on the phone. Bombay had started this experiment 5 years ago, mobile boarding passes, but somehow that, never went anywhere. And I hope it gets revived and implemented across the country. But the way it happens in America is you have a mobile boarding pass and it's completely contactless. You scan it at the kiosk, you scan it when you're dropping your bags, you scan it at security, and you scan it again when you're boarding. There is no paper involved, and there is no stamping involved, and there is no touching involved. So that kind of technology exists. It is again available in India, and we need to start adopting it. What has held it back is the whole stamping requirement, but hopefully now that will be solved. The second example I want to give of our love for paper despite everything digital is the fact that for several years now, India's had these optical boarding pass readers at the boarding gates. So when you are boarding, you scan the boarding pass on that little gadget, and it beeps, and either it's a red light or a green light. Green is good, red is not good. And then you board the aircraft, and that optical scanner is linked to the departure control system, and everything is recorded: who the passengers, what time they boarded, so on and so forth. But for some reason, you'll notice that many Indian airlines still they scan your boarding pass and then they tear off the stub. What is the point of tearing the stub if you're optically scanning the boarding pass and you're digitally capturing the information? And the answers I would get, whichever airline I interacted with in my 6 years in India, is that, sir, it's a backup in case there's a head count error and there is this error, that error. I said, look, if you go through our records, most of the errors have happened because you're scanning and you get a count, then you're tearing the stub off, and then you're counting the stubs, and there's a miscount between what you're counting in the stubs and what the digital scanner is telling you. And 9 times out of 10, the miscount is in counting the paper stubs. So if you just do away with that step, that process, you reduce your errors by 90%. But the reluctance to give up on paper is what held us back. But when I was at Spicejet, and thereafter at Vistara, I just did away with stubbing. I said there is absolutely no need for stubbing. I still had to give in one or two cases where the ground staff insisted that, look, in such and such airport, because the passengers tend to intermingle, remote boarding, they walk to the aircraft, etc. We want to make sure that the passenger boarding the aircraft is still the passenger who had scanned his boarding pass, in the terminal before he started walking outside on the tarmac. But in my opinion, you just have to look at the boarding pass and see the right flight number. But still, the stubbing goes on there because it gives staff a sense of control of some kind, or mental satisfaction that they have a stub to count. I hope that also goes away because really, if you think about it logically, there is no reason for that to happen. In fact, an airline like Indigo now has optical scanners even at the stairs for remote boarding, and that's a good solution. The challenge there is that some airports don't have good wireless signals or Wi-Fi signals, so the optical scanners may or may not work. But that's the direction we need to head. So everyone in India, We are talking digital. Digital is in everybody's business plan. Digital is the buzzword of the day. So please let us drop our dependence on paper. Let us drop our dependence on counting and double counting. All of this is just bureaucracy and red tape. Let us actually trust the technology. Let us trust the digital, and let us move forward to a much more efficient way of handling customers at airports. Thanks, and see you tomorrow. Take care.